Okay, so this is a basic introduction to the interface of 3D Studio Max. So what we're looking at here is Max 14, Autodesk product. The way that this is set up, similar to a lot of other tools, you have toolbars running across the top, the selection toolbars, and you have two different options for that. You can select by picking an object, or you can select by name. The name is really handy, and we'll get into that when we get into importing models and other things into this, because you can start to import things via layer from Rhino or from Revit. We can start to, obviously there's other selection tools moving across, there's moving, rotating, scaling. Something to note about 3D Studio Max is it's not incredibly useful in terms of modeling software, or at least from my perspective, it tends to not be super precise. Not that it doesn't have the capacity to be precise, it's just that it's sort of difficult to negotiate those tools. It's a lot easier to be very precise in Rhino and then import the model in and bring stuff in for rendering in Studio Max. Moving across the top, we have some snapping tools, some general functions in here. Max has its own scripting similar to Rhino script. It's a little bit more robust. We'll see if we end up getting into that at all down the road with some of these tutorials. Over here you have the sort of the generative tools here, and so we have create, then we can modify, we can look at some of the hierarchy, and if we're doing bones and stuff, we can animate, and then we have some system utilities in here that we can do. In the create tool, we can create cameras, we can create objects, create a box here. Right. We can create, let's see if we create we'll create a free camera. Oops. And so we can select this. Like I said, we can select from list. We can select our box. We can select our camera. We'll select the camera. All of the view tools are down in the bottom right-hand corner here, so we can start to adjust these guys. So I'll click on that to go back to sort of the 4-frame view. And then we can start to adjust these guys. I'm going to come in here and rotate this around. Alright. And then if we come in here, if we just left-clicked on this, we can set the cameras, or we can set the views to our camera here. And then click on this, we can go to realistic. And so then as we start to move and manipulate the camera around, we can start to see our guy here. Okay. And so that's just some of the basic utilities of this particular software. We can create lights, and we'll get into that in another point. The modify tool, this is where you start to add modifiers to this. So if we can come in here, this is really handy when you're trying to apply material maps and things like that, or if you're trying to, you can explode geometries, you can create tessellation patterns. There's a lot of stuff you can do in here. This is where you start to morph and modify the geometries in here, so you can start to really get under the hood of what the software can do. All right. I'm going to skip the hierarchy for now here. Motion, we can start to animate things. There's two things you want to pay attention to this when we start to get into some of the animation tutorials. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But if we look across the bottom here, we have a timeline. We can toggle that on and off. You set an auto key, so if I want to come in here and then I'll move this guy over. That should created a keyframe there, and you can see as now we move across the timeline, it'll go ahead and move back and forth between that. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. The timeline configuration controls are right here, so you can start to get into that if once you know what you're doing. Once you're done animating, you can go ahead and turn that off. And so then that'll basically get you set up in here. Across the bottom, we do have some of these other things. We get coordinates, so we can start to say we want to move that up. We can actually move those geometries around from this point in here. We can adjust the grids and stuff like that as well. All right.